His name is Herschel Reamer, a Hasidic Jewish rabbi with a message.
Welcome my first guest. He's been seen all over LA. Please welcome Herschel Reamer.
Hi, I'm Herschel. No, and like you're expecting Cardinal Mahoney. No, what you see on stage tonight is not an act or a gimmick or a costume. It's real. That's why I talk like this. With that annoying sing-songy voice. Because I'm an Orthodox rabbi. And matter of fact, it doesn't get more Jewy than this! It doesn't get more Jewy than this! It doesn't get more Jewy than this!
When I first come up on stage, something happens that I can honestly say doesn't happen with any other comic, and that is people are already laughing before I even say anything.
Welcome to Temple Beth Improv! I bet when you came down here tonight, you did not expect to see this on the stage, right?
When Herschel walks on stage and he's in his full religious garb, I think the first reaction of the audience is that it's some kind of put-on. It's a costume, it's a joke.
Jeff Jenna, manager of the famed Improv in Irvine, California, is Herschel's comedy coach.
I think that as he does his act, it becomes apparent that it's not a joke. This is who he is. And that's the very essence of stand-up comedy, is being who you are on stage.
I wear, I guess you'd call the traditional Hasidic battle gear. I come out to fill-in every weekday morning. To fill-in are leather straps that are worn around your arm and also over your head. And inside the boxes there are parchments, and then on the parchments are written passages from the Torah. Every Jewish man has to put on tefillin every day. This is how I am 24/7.
This is also how Herschel is.
But tonight I'm going to break a few rules up here, starting with a rabbi striptease. Just for them. Yeah, I'm a dancing rabbi. And ladies, I'm single. And you know, I'm probably great in bed. Do you? Yeah, I just need someone to marry me so I can prove it. And kids, take it from me. Celibacy just ain't all it's cranked up to. But yeah, I'm quite great in bed. I mean, think about it. It's circumcised, in mint condition, low mileage, original owner, kosher, and ready to go. Oh, come on, you love it. What else are you going to hear Rabbi telling dick jokes?
Obviously, my religion is more important to me than my comedy, right? Bottom line is, right, I always have to follow the Torah and believe in God. Okay, given that, the next thing I want to do in this world is make people laugh.
Okay, let me ask you Gentiles a few more questions. And you can answer me with a round of applause. How many of you here tonight think I look like I just fell out of Fiddler on the Roof? Careful, careful, I'm bringing back the sing-songy voice. I'm bringing back the voice. And how many of you here tonight think I have sex through a hole in a sheet? Yeah.
You see a guy who's an Orthodox Jew with the beard and the sideburns, you're going to stop and go, well, what was this guy saying? And you're going to listen to what he says.
Oh yeah, what's with the side thingies? Well, let's just say they give our wives something to hold on to right before they ask us for money.
But I mean, the reason I wanted to come to comedians is because it's the one thing that we all, comics have in common. I'm a comic, Gentile, Christian, the antithesis of everything that you are. I don't think you probably come in under the radar when you enter a room. You obviously are very specifically dressed in that which is your traditional garb. Would that be called Rabbi cape? I don't know I don't have the terminology. Explain what you're wearing.
You can call it the Hasidic battle gear.
Okay.
Okay, this is what Jews traditionally wear.
Okay.
Traditionally Jews have like a Jewish look. There's like Jewish clothes. It's like clothes
because I've met quite a few Jews until none of them were wearing
right,
the battle
because
gear.
they're Jews. They're Jews that are not wearing Jewy clothes.
Okay.
Okay, but Jews.
So this isn't rabbi clothes. This
No,
is Jew clothes.
Exactly.
Which sounds almost racist when I say this is Jew
That's
clothes.
fine. That's fine.
And I don't mean it that way, but it came out so harsh. This is Jew clothes.
This is Jew clothes.
Okay.
There's like Jew food, right?
So in Israel, this is what they'd be all. Okay.
Well, this is what any Jew that wants to dress Jewy would end up looking like.
Okay.
All right.
Doesn't each one of them have a significance
It's not really a significance. It's just tradition that this is what Jews all look like, right? When we were in Europe.
Okay.
So European, let's say Ashkenazi Jews had a look, right? And we preserve our look.
And how old is this look?
I don't know, probably 1700s. We started all dressing like
because
this.
I was thinking about, it reminded me of, and this is not a good example because I'm guessing Jews predated Amish, but they have the same kind of idea. They found a space in history where they said, this is kind of where we're going to stay, and they haven't changed.
Exactly.
And they also won't use the electricity, and they also are still on horse and buggy.
Well, the difference between us and is the Amish won't use electricity all week long. Mm-hmm. We just don't use electricity on Jewish Sabbath, which is only one day. Okay. So we can squeeze in the entire Amish thing in one day. That's how advanced we are. We can do the whole Amish thing.
You've had so much more practice.
In one day. Yeah.
You've had so much more years of practice.
Right. I've seen your videos. I checked out your videos on YouTube, your act, right? So I would consider you like the Christian Rabbi Rabbs.
Really?
Yeah, I would consider you like the Christian Rabbi
Rabbs. And people have said to me, are you Jewish? Because my last name's Stein. Oh. And I said, not that I'm aware of, but if I found out that I was, I'd be proud of that.
Oh, okay.
So that's the way I saw it.
Because the way I see you is like you get up there and you rant about, that you don't want the country to be so PC, right? And like that's the kind of stuff I rant about it.
Right.
I do broadcasts.
Oh, good.
Out of my place, right? And I'm always talking about how I can't stand how, you call it wussification of America?
Well,
I just checked that.
Yeah.
I just call it like, I call it feminization.
That's an element.
Right, and this country's become completely feminized. Right? And when somebody mentioned Donald Trump, right?
Yes.
So I think that Donald Trump is bringing masculinity back to white America, which has long lost it.
Yes.
We become completely feminized with all this feminine PC police, right?
Right.
And he's
now, when you say that to me, is that coming from a perspective of the American culture, or is there a Jewish element to that you also feel would be indicative of the culture of where a male and female's maybe place in God's creation? Do they have specific areas that they are expected to behave in, or what?
Okay, so you have a two-part question.
Yeah,
I would say.
Well, either part you want to use.
My view on America is not really based on that. I have a different thing which I can get back to later if you want to know. But the second question is how does Judaism look at like male and female? Mm-hmm. Okay, we are not egalitarian. Okay. Judaism, okay, if you're looking for like, equality between the sexes and, and stuff, Judaism probably not going to work for you.
Okay.
It's not going to work for you because we're not egalitarian. Judaism, Torah, right, is very sexist.
Okay.
It defines specific gender differences.
Right.
It's not that one's better than the other.
Right.
It's not that one's inferior and one's superior. It's just separate but equal.
But when you say sexist, which in the PC world would be a derogatory term.
Right.
You're using that as a definitive term.
Yeah, I don't have no
There is a
problem.
way that a male behaves, and God has given him specific
Right.
functions, and there's a way that a woman behaves.
Right, there's division of labor,
yes.
as if, sort of speak, right?
Yeah.
There's a division of labor. There's the way that women dress and the way that men dress, and there's the way that, you know, there's just things that only men can do, and there's things that only women can do.
Right.
And that's how Judaism, that's how Torah, that's how God has set us up. That there's different rules, and we're not the same people.
Right.
You know, and that's it.
So, tell me about how you think. Do you think Jews in general, or let's say American Jews, are different in that what I'm discovering on this journey? Because I'm just trying to find truth. I don't know anything about Israel, but yet I have a connection to that based on my faith that I feel I have an obligation to understand, and a biblical obligation to understand, if I may be so bold. So. The Kabbalah, maybe there's something I don't know about. But what I'm curious about is, you know, one of the things that I have discovered through trying to discover this Israel-Palestinian issue, which is very important and seems to matter to the world, not just to that area, is that it seems as though that there doesn't seem to be a consensus among Jews as to how they should view Israel. I would think of all people that not only have been persecuted, but have a record of where they were persecuted, what the guy's name was, and who his cousin was while they were being persecuted, and with what instrument. So if anybody has a record of this, and it's not a funny thing, but it is it is something that is historically established, they would be the most sensitive to not wanting to fracture because they need each other. And that's not what I see. I see anti-Israeli Jews,
Right.
which seems to me to be beyond comprehension.
Right.
So explain it to me, because you got to know this answer.
Okay, well, see, that's funny. It's funny to me because you're on the outside looking in, right? I grew up with Jews, right? So this is just like normal. Like I mentioned before, there's a famous saying. It says, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, right? There's no 2 Jews that agree on anything, okay? That's just the way it is.
But isn't there a standard through the Torah that you have to refer to?
First, hold on. Just to get to that point, we have to get, are all the Jews willing to agree on accepting Judaism? And the answer is no, that today most Jews are secular, and the religion that they embrace is not Judaism, it has nothing to do with it. The religion that most Jews today embrace is leftism, is secularism, is liberalism, is Marxism, and this is what they follow.
Dennis Prager said the exact same thing.
Who said it?
Dennis Prager said the exact same thing.
All right. So who's are you going to use? In the
I would say yours. I would say yours has more of a holy aura about it, but that is what he said. He said that leftism has replaced the religion.
Oh yeah, that is absolutely the religion.
Why?
Why? Because see, when you're there's a lot of different reasons for that, right? Judaism is an all-encompassing religion. When you shed it off, your Jewish soul, God has given every Jew a special Jewish soul, a neshama, and that soul is just dying to get involved and start doing stuff, right? It's motivated. It's not just going to be sitting around doing nothing all day, pushing a pencil 9 to 5. It's just not going to be satisfied. So it's got to get involved in stuff. And like liberalism provides so many different outlets for it. You know, you can like take care of the poor in Rwanda, and you can help all the black people, and you can
which are good things,
right? And like you can feel like you're doing things with other people's money. It's wonderful, right?
Okay.
Right. So they get involved in liberalism, and that's what they do, and it like satisfies their need, right, to make up for the fact that they're not doing what they were designed to do and what their neshama was brought into this planet.
So they're trying to fill that space with a counterfeit or an idol, so to speak.
Exactly. And their idol today, today's big idol, is liberalism, secularism, atheism, anti-theism, Marxism, and the Democratic Party.
Okay, so you're going to have to trust me here for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Because I have no agenda. I'm a truth seeker, and I realize that if there's one thing, and as you said, you saw some of my material, I'm very anti-political correctness because it's Marxism, because it's cultural Marxism.
Right.
And it does self-censor. It does not allow freedom of thought or liberty of speech. Matter of fact, it eliminates truth. Because the moment I can say there is no truth, then I can control you, because I can create a fantasy world and demand you live in it, which is what we're dealing with now in America. And so I would love to be able to ask questions to people that I don't understand because I'm curious, not because, and ignorant, not because I'm insensitive. And yet that's how it's been framed now. That if I was to say something about a black person, and here's where I got this idea. I heard a guy one time, I don't remember if it was a radio show or something, but he said something to the effect of, he had a black friend, and he's like, how did you get your teeth so white? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you know, that's so offensive. And I remember thinking, how do you do that? But because we see, or the left sees everything through this prism of oppression.
Right.
To even be able to ask the questions, seek these answers, is almost inappropriate.
Right.
And insensitive. And I'm supposed to somehow be able to live in somebody else's skin, of which I will have no way to relate to. So I mean this with all sincerity. And perhaps, you know what, perhaps it's a selfish question, frankly, because
You want to know how come I got my teeth so white?
well, yes, and
Because I have a Jewish dentist.
that's
That's-
exactly.
Long way to ask, I'll tell you.
But no, but what I'm doing is I believe that we are of a kindred spirit because we're comics.
Yeah.
And comics have always been more able to speak because we love information, we love seeing everything about the world because that's how we comment on it. So it seems like there's been a history now, and maybe this is only because you guys' history has been so documented, and if any people group was put in the same position, we'd see the same through line. Because I don't think you're a different human than me, but it seems like there's been a lot of, oftentimes, a sense of walking away from your faith, walking away from that. You see numerous occasions. God got us out, thanks, but no onions. You know, I mean, it's this other. So do you think there's a? Do you think that's more of a general observation of the human nature, or do you think there's something in a Jewish spirit that is unique, being, as you were told, you're the chosen people? That's a lot of responsibility. Do you think that has caused some
I don't know. I have to think
stress?
about that because the problem with me answering that question, I'll be honest, I can't really answer for other people.
Of course.
Because I don't know how other people think.
You're right.
I only know how Jews think. But I can say that you're onto something that after we go through like a really crappy experience, a lot of people react to it by saying, that's it, I'm done. I'm out of here, I'm done.
And the Holocaust.
The Holocaust,
Yeah,
great
look at
great
them being
example.
there in Dachau and saying, if this is what God, I'm out because this is horrible. I mean,
A lot of people came out of the Holocaust, right? And they came to America and they were like, you know, they were done. They were just done with Judaism. They don't want anything to do with it because they said, like, this proves there's no God. This proves that there's either no God or God did this, and either way, I don't want to. I'm not going to waste my time if there's no God, and if God did this, then I don't want to be any part of this God, which is more like, like the story of Jonah.
Oh, yeah.
From Nineveh. I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I know there's a God and He wants this, but
Yeah.
I'm not doing it.
I'm out.
Right? I'm
Yeah.
out. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, go find your own people. I'm done with this, right?
Right.
Right? So that happened that in big quantities when they came to America, right? America became like the receptacle
You're talking about after World War II.
after World War II.
Okay. Because that also happened to be the same time that Israel was formed.
Right. Well, America became the repository, not the receptacle, the repository for people, for Jews who were done.
Okay.
Okay, this is why most Jews in America today are secularized and liberalized and don't have anything to do with Judaism. And assimilated and intermarried and all this other stuff.
Okay.
Because they came here with the idea of we're going to assimilate and melt into becoming Americans. We're Americans now, and we are done with the whole Jew thing.
Okay.
We don't want to be recognizably Jewish and whatever.
So Judaism is not a religion. To them, it's a nationality. It's a heritage. What
Or
is it?
Judaism.
Or Jewishness.
Judaism is to them is well, there's different types of Jews. This is what you see. It's not black and white. It's
Yeah,
not like there's
can you
not
just
like
give me one type of Jew to make it easier.
there's no. See, you got to understand. This gets back to your original question, right? You said, how come there's so many fracturing? How much there's so many splintering and so compartmentalized, and there's so many different varieties. Like you go into 31 Baskin flavors, and if you go to a Jewish one, it'd be like 86 flavors, right?
Yeah.
You go to the Knesset, which is the government in Israel. There are more political parties than there's Jews living in the country. Everybody's got their own political party.
Okay.
Right? Americans have no concept of this, right? Being American, we have like 2 big ones and like 6 that like you go like, oh my God,
Yeah.
right? And then that's it. You're done. You have 8, right? That's like nothing for Israel. Israel
Right.
has everybody's got their own political party.
But
Right? Because everybody's got a different
is
opinion.
that them going out of their way to be inclusive so that they're left alone or trying to? Because they're always, I mean, they're called an apartheid state. They're called an occupied state.
That's ridiculous. You want to know how? You want to know your proof that it's not an apartheid state?
Please.
Okay. You want to know the proof? Is
Yeah.
the elections, because there's an Arab party.
Okay.
Okay. There's a party just for Arabs, and that party finished third this year in the elections. You know, like Netanyahu's party, which is Likud, won it, and the number 2 was the Labor Party. You know who finished third? The Arabs. The Arab Party finished third. With that, the entire discussion about apartheid, in my book, ended.
Right.
Because if it's an apartheid state, right, you don't have, right, this oppressed minority, right,
Not
so
only- yeah.
close to taking over the country
Right.
on just through democracy.
Right.
Because they have equal vote, right, and they could have won the election.
And
So,
if
please don't-
apartheid were real, not only would you not have come in third, you wouldn't have been able to even run.
Right. You wouldn't vote, you wouldn't run, and you wouldn't have that many votes behind you, and no one would take a chance on you winning.
How did they get that many votes?
How many get-
There's that many Palestinians or Arabs.
Yeah,
in
there's a lot
Israel?
of. Plus, watch this. Because every Jew has their own political party, right? So all the Jews are like splintered all over the place, and all the Arabs consolidated in one. And
So their votes are being distributed.
yeah, the
all
Jews,
over.
right? That's the reason, right? So that's your proof that it's not an apartheid. I don't need to say anything more to that
Yeah.
issue. Anybody who still believes in apartheid they're only saying it because they hate Jews, and they will
So
keep.
this is anti-Semitic then.
This is complete anti-Semitism.
Okay.
Anybody who still flashes around this apartheid thing, right, and tries to compare it to South Africa,
Yeah.
where the majority of the people were one and they didn't have any rights at all and they couldn't vote and whatever, and the minority ran their own little world down there. How can you compare it to Israel, right? When they vote and they could have taken over the entire country. And in a way, I actually would like to see them win it just one time. Why? Because then everybody has to, who still yells apartheid
Right.
at that point, you can just, they're like announcing how much they hate Israel because they hate Jews.
Who's they? Everybody? Just
Everybody in the world.
Arabs?
No. Who? You want to know who hates?
I want to know what
You
I
want to know
wanna
who hates Jews?
Please.
You really want to know who hates
I
Jews?
Tell me, my brother.
I'll do it the faster way. Let's go to the people who don't hate Jews. It'll be a lot quicker.
Okay.
The people in this world who don't hate Jews are the people living in Israel. In America, in the United States, I would say Republicans, especially right-wing conservative evangelical Christians, okay? Some religious Catholics, some, and some Jews, the Republican Jews, okay? And I say the Republican Jews, right? Because if they're not Republican, chances are they're self-hating Jews.
What is that phenomenon?
That's because we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But I can only answer
All
one
right,
thing at a
go
time.
ahead, yeah.
Okay, outside of the United States, right? In the United States, it's only the Republicans, it's only the evangelicals and the religious right.
Okay.
And even among the Jews, it's only the Republican Jews. In Canada, it's Stephen Harper's government. In Australia, it's Tony Abbott's government. The people of the Czech Republic and the Kurds. Those are our friends.
How did the Czech Republic end it?
Well, I'll get to that too. See, somebody needs to write this down. We need a scribe. We need a scribe who like writes down all the stuff, and I'll come back and answer it all up. Okay? But the Czech Republic, Tony Abbott's government, not all of Australia, but Tony Abbott's government, not all of Canada, but Stephen Harper's government, not all of the United States, but the Republicans, who, by the way, this week it was shown as a fact that most Democrats would prefer that all the Jews be put back on the trains and sent back to the death camps. That was a fact because, you know, the whole thing about the Iran deal?
Yeah, yes.
The Democrats pushed it through yesterday. Okay? So as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats are not people that are friends with Jews, are good with the fact that Jews would be annihilated in a second Holocaust. So these people are not our friends, and these people are not standing up for us. The only people in the world who like Jews, who will stand up for us, who are our friends, are the Kurds, the Czechs, the Republicans in the United States, right? The evangelical Christians, and the right-wing governments of Canada and Australia, and that's it. And the rest of the world hates us. The rest of the world hates us and would like to see Hitler's job completed. And so they hate Israel. They hate Israel because Israel is full of Jews. And they hate us. And you can see the insanity because it's irrational. It's irrational.
But I mean, is it your religion that they hate? Is it your...
Okay, I can give you...
What is it they hate?
Okay.
You're just people.
There's a lot of different levels of why they hate us. You know, just like there's a lot of splinters, a lot of different types of Jews.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different
But what
reasons.
are they hating about you?
There's a lot of different things that people hate us for different reasons. Okay? Now, there's the simple reason they can say, well, you know, because the Catholic Church spread it around Europe that the Jews killed Jesus, so they hate us because we're the Jesus killers, right? But the hatred towards us is a lot older than that. The hatred of us goes way back. We have been the victims of everybody, right? You know, not just the Holocaust and the Inquisition, which we, you know, the Spanish and the Portuguese Inquisitions, right? But, you know, like we had the pogroms and the Cossacks and all these things, right? And the Crusades, right? And it just goes back and back and back. And if you go back further, we had the Romans that annihilated us and the Greeks that annihilated us. We had the problem with the Muslims with Muhammad in the 600s. We had the problem with the Babylonians came. It never ends. The Jews have been annihilated by everybody, right? If you're not Jewish, somebody in your ancestry wiped out my people. And that includes you, Buster.
Yes, I was
Where were
hoping you were going to leave me out of that.
And you mentioned that we know which day and which instrument it happened, right? I've got the goods on your family, right?
I know. Well, I happen to be of German
time to start
heritage,
making-
so I probably don't have a lot ways to
We
hide.
have to make reparations,
Yes,
dude.
I know. Well,
I'll take it in cash.
yeah, exactly.
All right, so that's what's happening. Now, so you asked me as a rabbi, I'm going to give you an answer nobody's going to give you. Why does everybody hate the Jews? Why have they all always hated the Jews? It's not just because because the church said we killed Jesus, right? It's more than that. It's because God chose us as the chosen people. It's because God gave the Torah to us. You know, we're this little tiny people. We're 1/4 of 1%, not 1%. We're 1/4 of 1% of the world's population, which means 1 in every 400 people. But we're the ones that everybody hates. I'm like, what did we do to anybody? We don't have a history of going around killing everybody, right? Everybody has a history of killing us. We don't kill people, right? So why does everybody hate us so much? They hate us because God picked us to give the Torah to.
They're jealous.
They're jealous, but it's deeper than that. It's
covetous.
It's because this.
That just sounded more Hebrew.
No, I'm gonna give you a reason that nobody else is gonna tell you.
I can't wait.
People hate God. The left wing, right, hates God.
So this is a spiritual battle.
This is a
And
battle.
they're taking it out on you.
Right. Why? Because it says it explains in Judaism that God is married to the Jewish people. Okay? God married us at Mount Sinai. The Jews are God's wife.
A covenant.
Okay? We're Jews. Jews are God's wife. If you hate God, how do you beat him up? Because he's invisible. You can't. You know, you can swing at the walls and stuff, right? It's like hitting a ghost. He's invisible, you can't hit him. So what do? You hit the next best thing. You hit his wife. You get him where he lives, right? You beat up his old lady. That's how you piss off, God. That's how you get back at him. So you kill the Jews, because that's your way of attacking God.
I see. That's
okay.
Good. That's interesting.
Right, and all of these groups, all of them, the Muslims, the Crusaders, all these different groups, and today it's all the Europeans, right? Everybody in Europe. Europe hates Jews, right? Why is all this going on? The socialists and the Marxists and all these people hate Jews because they hate Jews because they hate God. They're atheists, they're well, they're not really atheists, they're liars, because they really do believe that God exists. But they love to say that God doesn't exist.
Oh, to insult them.
Right? And it's because they're angry, right? You show me somebody who's an anti-theist, I'll show you somebody who's completely, all of their motivation is based on emotions, because it's based on hate, because they hate God. Okay? So they come after Jews as their way of turning on God. And that's what's going on. And you can call it Israel. Israel is a facade. It's a what do you call it? Fugazi, you know?
I don't know what that means.
And neither do I. So we'll skip that word. Okay,
It's a good word.
It's phony baloney. This war, you know, this whole thing about let's boycott Israel and all this. You know, Israel, there's really bad. Why don't you just come out and be honest? You hate Jews. Because it's not believable when you say, God, it's not believable when you say, hey, let's boycott and sanction against Israel, right? At the same time, we're going to let Iran have the bomb. Okay, whoa, wait a second. What? Right? You know, the women have no rights. You know, they can't drive or whatever. I don't know what goes on over there, right? You know, it's like they.
So even what normally used to be the elements that they were most against.
Exactly.
Suddenly that gets trumped if a Jew is involved.
Right. So it's like Iran, which state-sponsored terrorism, then they kill people all over the world, right? Because they do all these things, right? And their horrible record of human rights when it comes to gays and when it comes to women and all these things, right? So that, you know, like all these leftists are so transparent. They're like, oh, let's give Iran the bomb. You know, let's lift the sanctions on them. We need to lift the sanctions on Iran. Same time, out of the other side of their mouth, they're saying, let's sanction the Jews. Let's sanction Israel, right? Because Israel is clearly the problem, right? State-sponsored terrorism everywhere. What do they do with their gays in Israel? They have a gay pride parade. They have like Tel Aviv is like all gay, right? What is the other one? Women. Women vote. They ran the country, right? They vote. They're in the army. They're in political office. They like Golda Meir ran the country. I mean, it's so unbelievable. It's laughable. It's not logic anymore. There's no truth in it. You can't say any longer that this is a legitimate boycott of Israel when you're lifting your sanctions against Iran. I mean, it's just a joke.
Okay, well, and that makes sense. And I think, you know, certainly it bears, you know, out in evidence when you see, you know, how it certainly seems to be focused on Israel alone and leaving everybody else off. But you said something about how, you know, many Jews did walk away from it, certainly from their faith perspective and so forth.
You're bringing us back.
Okay, but I am curious about this, because you obviously take your faith seriously. You've committed your life to that. It's real. You're willing to take whatever comes with the territory of that. So when they hate you as the bride or the wife because they're saying, I will go after your, you know, I despise your husband or whatnot, do you as an Orthodox committed Jew feel that is, and might sound, I don't mean it to be trite, but is that almost an honor that you are saying, if that's what you want from me to receive, so be it, because you're God, you're sovereign, okay. I mean, do you almost feel because you're chosen? I mean, nobody else got that title, by the way. So as a Jew, truly, internally, you know, is there some sense of obligation to accepting whatever comes with that?
Yeah, you know what?
mantle?
You know what? You want to know something? The answer is actually for you in Torah, and I'll tell you why. You want to know this? When we convert somebody, when a non-Jew comes and they want to become a Jew, right? One of the things that they will be asked by the rabbis, right, when they perform the conversion process is, are you ready to accept upon the fact that there's going to be, everybody on the planet is going to hate you, and they may come and try to kill you or your family, because this is what our history and our heritage is about, is that everybody comes and they want to kill us. And that's one of the things, and the person says, no, I can't do it, then there's no point. They're never going to make it as a Jew. Right. Because that's like the minimum daily requirement. You have to be ready to be accept the fact that everybody hates you.
And is there some sort of moral teaching about how you're allowed to respond to that? In other words, in the Christian tradition, there's what is known as a just law, or just war theory. I think it was Augustine or something. But how during certain engagements of people, you know, attacking you or whatever, that there are times when you're allowed, of course, create an army, defend yourself, invoke justice, defend the innocent, so forth. So, being as Christianity came from the Jewish tradition, I'm guessing there has to be some sense of you're not obligated to just be beaten and crushed without defense.
No,
or does that go with the?
No, it's a good question. We're actually commanded that it says, like, if somebody's going to come and kill you, right, then you can wake up early and kill them first. Because it's self-defense.
Now, is that in the Torah, or is that more of a historical teaching?
No. That's God said that on Mount Sinai.
Oh. Wow.
He didn't exactly say the 5 in the morning thing.
Right.
I kind of threw that in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
He's not on linear time anyway, so I'm sure.
right. No. But he did say you can get up early and go take care of them. Right. So we're allowed to defend ourselves. So you might say, well, how come the Jews don't do a good job of defending themselves? Well.
Well, up until Israel. I don't think you'd say that about Israel.
Historically, we weren't great at this, but you got to understand also, we're really outnumbered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when the Romans came and they threw us out of Israel.
Yeah.
A very small number of us were there,
Mm-hmm.
because most Jews were still living in Persia, right? There was maybe, I don't know, less than 100,000 Jews, and a whole Roman army showed up and just annihilated us.
Mm.
You know, the Babylonians came with, like, the whole country of Babylon showed up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so we're always vastly outnumbered, right? And then, like, you look at the Holocaust, right, with the Nazis. You know what the Nazis did? Learn a lesson from this. The first thing that Hitler did when he took office is he confiscated everybody's weapons. Mm. Everybody, Jew, Gentile alike, right? Took everybody's weapons. And then, a few years later, after they got everybody's weapons, then he reissued the weapons to everybody except Jews. So, I told you my opinion of apartheid.
Right.
You can't even talk about it. There's no
Right.
apartheid. Anybody
Yeah.
who says apartheid, right, is revealing themselves as an anti-Semite, somebody who hates Jews and wants us all back on the trains, right?
Okay.
Because you got to remember that the people mostly pushing all this stuff are all leftists and they're all Europeans, and these are the people that traditionally hate Jews, right? So it's disingenuous when they start talking about, oh, you know, Israel, we don't like what they're doing to the Palestinians, and we stand for Palestinians, right? No, you don't, because there's lots of people all over the world who are violating people's human rights, and you single out Israel as the problem. Why are you singling out Israel, right? Why are the sanctions going to come down on, why you want to boycott Israel and you lift the sanctions from Iran? Okay, so you're a hypocrite, shut up, just stop. Right? Because it's not believable anymore. So
Well,
these people.
speak of those other countries that you were telling about that you felt did have sort of a sympathy towards that, like
Czechoslovakia?
Yeah.
Okay, the Czech Republic. Okay, well, let's just do it. Okay, so the Czechs have reached the bottom. There is none left for them to give because the Czechs have been screwed over by everybody, right? They were betrayed by the Brits, right? They were betrayed by the Brits because they were handed over to the Nazis. They were oppressed by the Nazis, so by the Germans, the Brits. Then they were hoping for the Americans to come help them, and Patton said, I'm going to get you. And then Eisenhower said, no, we can't do that because FDR already made a thing with the Soviets. So they feel that the Americans backstabbed them and betrayed them. Then they became Soviets, under Soviets. So the Russians they hate the Americans, they hate the Brits, they hate all of Europe, right? As far as they're concerned, they were the ones that were handed over, right? They became handed over by Neville Chamberlain, right? So they relate to anybody who's thrown under a bus. And the last thing they ever want to do is agree with anything the EU does, right? The EU all goes one way, they're going to go the opposite because they hate all of these people. These people all betrayed them, right? So they relate to the Jews in Israel because the Jews in Israel, right, are betrayed by everybody. Everybody hates us. So they like that, right? Because they know what it's, and the fact that we just got thrown under a bus by Obama with his deal with Iran makes them love us even more. So Bibi Netanyahu, who's the prime minister, he went over to the Czech Republic. He said, you guys are our greatest friends in Europe. And it's true, because when Israel was, sometimes I say we, I shouldn't say that because I wasn't there, but when Israel was fighting for its independence in 48 and got another war in 56 and another war in 67, you know whose weapons they used? They used Czechoslovakian guns and gunships. It was all being brought up from the Czechs. The Czechs were right there to help them. Right? When the UN takes a vote on anything about Israel, about Palestinians, the whole world goes one way, right? It's like the US and Canada will help out Israel, and there's only like one country ever that votes their way in Europe, and that's the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic is always there and has Israel's back. They are like buddy-buddy, right? And my sister was just in Prague like last month, and she said it's the only place in Europe that a Jew can comfortably dress like this, walk down the street, and not worried about being killed by a Muslim, because they've handled their Muslim issue, right? They don't have the problems that the other countries in Europe all do.
Well, do you think that the problems that you've had with Muslims is any different than historically? Do you think it's more perhaps ramped up than it?
No, I will tell you like this. You know the story of Muhammad?
Which story?
Okay, the story is 622, right? Muhammad made a 180, and his 180 was, at the beginning he was trying to push his religion, he was doing it peacefully, right? And like Jews wouldn't buy it, because we don't buy other people's religions, right? We'd rather die than buy somebody else's religion, right? Like the not the Holocaust, the Inquisitions, and this is what we do. So the Jews in Medina, right, wouldn't accept his religion. So then he just suddenly had a prophecy, and God said, no, then you have to use force.
Yeah.
So you can go use force to get people to follow Islam. So he has like this little cult. He made up this little religion. Nobody follows it. So now he's going to push it on everybody violently. So he became he took his tribe, and they became a violent tribe, and they did their first jihad, and it was against the people in that area. And one of the groups he went against was the Jews, and they annihilated us in the town of Medina, right? And they did everything you see today, where they take the people and they take their arms behind their backs and they put them down on the thing, and then they slice their heads off. And you see ISIS doing this on TV. That's what Muhammad did to us 1,400 years ago. It's exactly the same. People go, oh, ISIS doesn't represent authentic Islam. Oh, you hear all these apologists for Islam. What? They're doing exactly what Muhammad did to us. And Muhammad did what? He took Jewish women, and they took them as sex slaves, right? And he forced one to marry him, right? This is exactly what they do. ISIS goes into these places, and they go to the Yazidis and the Kurds, and they steal the women, and they turn them into sex slaves. It's exactly the same.
So, as a rabbi, do you feel like your obviously your perspective is different than those who are not defending you. I look at those, we discussed, I guess, a little bit about those Jews who seem to almost be, weird word, anti-Semitic. I mean, you get a Noam Chomsky type who seems to almost want to destroy his own, as though he's somehow separate from this. It doesn't make sense to me. But I'm curious about that. And I asked a lot of the Jewish friends and acquaintances, this kind of a, and again, that might be an unfair question, because I'm sure in any group there's some odd mavericks that just you can't wrap your mind around them. But is this a newer phenomenon?
Jewish anti-Semites? Self-hating Jews?
Yes.
It started a couple hundred years ago, in Europe.
Was it for self-preservation?
No, it's just that we started seeing self-hating Jewish anti-Semites starting to evolve and emerge in Europe in the last couple hundred years. So it's not really new, but it's new compared to like the last couple thousand years.
Okay.
But it's a relatively new thing, right? And
the genesis of which would be what? They've gone through so many years of this type of treatment of being less than, that they began to believe that the propaganda against them. I mean, is it a psychological thing? It just doesn't. And maybe there's no answer. It just seems so odd to me. I just thought maybe
you want to know what it is.
Jewish community, you would say, do you discuss?
I'm just going to give you a spiritual answer.
Please.
Because these people also hate God.
So their Judaism is a disgrace to them because to them.
They hate inside. They hate God. Now, the reason that they hate God can vary. They could hate God, right, for the very reason that they're not following Him. So they have a cognitive dissonance. They're here for one purpose. Every Jew is here for only one purpose, and that's to follow God. That's to follow Torah and do mitzvahs, right? So they're not doing it. So they can't be at peace spiritually when they're a Jew here in this universe and they're not involved in Judaism. It's not going to work. So either you deal with the fact, you say, look, I'm not following it, right? Or you follow it, or you become a self-hating Jew and you hate God and you hate it, and you make a point to, tell everybody how bad Jews are, how bad Israel is, how Judaism is this and that. Karl Marx was Jewish?
I do know that.
You ever read his works? It's like filled with how much he hates people who follow Judaism. Okay? It's like filled with anti-Semitic
And weren't
crap.
his parents rabbis? Or?
No, wait a second. His immediate family, I believe, was Lutheran. I mean, they had really, okay, but he was one of his ancestors was one of the greatest Ashkenazi rabbis, okay? It was called Rabbi, the rabbi's called the Ramah. It was Rabbi Moshe Isserles, and he was like 1500s, and he lived in like Krakow or something in Poland. And it's like one of the greatest, he's like the biggest sage, right, of Ashkenazi, of European Jewry, and somehow or another, this guy ended up direct descendant of him. Don't ask me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
But, but again, I think that, what you're allusion to God or sort of this sort of sovereignty over you as a people certainly would resonate with me as a Christian, because I believe that there is sort of this higher, obviously, purpose that has been passed on. I look at Jews who God would say, you're the chosen folks. I'm going to keep this group together so we can actually document how the lineage will occur and how I'm going to come into and bring in prophets and whatnot. But also, frankly, under these ridiculously oppressive, worlds that you've lived in countries and so forth over years and years and years and years. Meanwhile, you've created some of the most brilliant thinkers, the most successful entrepreneurs, the most successful. It's like somehow, in spite of yourselves, so to speak, you have become maybe the most successful, the most productive. To me, that in a way is another God thing. It's like,
Oh yeah.
I'm going to take care of my kids, whether you like it or not, and you're going to watch this take place, and that will be the witness that this is real. But I could see how there could be a hatred towards that, because obviously man would be, that's the original sin, right? I will be God, I will hate that which created me.
Right, and that's like, I said there's different levels why people hate Jews. That's one of the levels, is they're jealous of the things that we've accomplished, right?
Yes.
Just on a secular level. Just nothing to do with religion. They just hate Jews because we always end up, successful in whatever it is we do.
Which is Israel. I mean,
Israel, right.
They took a place that nobody else had any use for,
Right,
and
and
they became one of the most productive.
And now they're coming up with the cures for cancer and HIV, and I'm reading all this stuff. They're going to be the ones that come up with it all.
Of course. So, as a rabbi, and as certainly committed to Israel, would you say that in trying to be fair, and I don't know the answer, I'm just curious from your perspective, do the Palestinians there have any legitimate grievances that aren't being answered by Israel, or do you think it's all nothing?
It's all bull.
Okay.
It's all propaganda. You want me to tell you my piece, right?
Of course.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even like the word Palestine. The Arabs in that country, in that area, have no claim to that land whatsoever.
And this is biblically, is that what
No, it's not biblical. I'm going to get to that in a second. Historically speaking, because what they are trying to say is, we're the indigenous people, we go further back, and this is our land, and you got to get up. Well, if we're going to play that game, or we're going to circle back to see who was there first, well, we know that the Jews were there 2,000 years ago. We've had Jewish people in that land going back 3,300 years until today. An unbroken chain of Jews living in that land.
And where is that documented?
It's our own history, right? But they use excavations.
Okay.
What do you call
Archaeological.
That's the word I was looking for. Is archaeological? They do these archaeological excavations, and they find things that corroborate our claims, right? Because we've kept our own history.
Yes.
We've kept our own history, and we know in our timeline, in our history that we've kept, we can tell you who was where all the way back 3,300 years ago when God spoke to us at Mount Sinai. Every single year is accounted for all the way up until today. And we've had people living there the entire time. Okay, we've been there, the entire nation of us was there, right, only 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, every Jew was living there. So if we're going to play, let's spin this back to, who's the real indigenous people, Arabs lose, because we were there long before them, right? So their whole claim to the land fails miserably, right? They're going to lose this, all right? If you want to go into an unbiased court of law, unbiased, they lose, right? Because they say, well, or if they say, well, it was ours, we were Palestine. Show us where in history there was a country there called Palestine. It wasn't, because they're using the word that was from the Ottoman Empire, right? And there was a section of it called Palestine, right? But who lived in that section? The Jews lived there, right? So when the Brits took over from after World War I, the Brits took over or whatever, and they defeated the Ottoman Empire and they took over, the British flag for that area had a Jewish star on it. It didn't have anything. It didn't have anything for the Arabs. It had a Jewish star. So it was called Palestine, but with a Jewish star. It was the section of this empire that was the few Jews that lived in that land. They have no claim to it. Okay, now you mentioned biblical, and I want to get this out because I don't think anybody you interview is going to mention this.
Well then, please.
You can use the Jewish history, all the way back to Mount Sinai, to show that the Arab claim is fallacious. And you can use it to show you guys have no claim to this land. Okay? But you can't use the Torah, you can't use Judaism to claim as a proof that Jews have the land. You can't. You can't say, the Jews can't say, well, that's our land because God gave it to us.
Why?
Why? I'll get to that. But the reason is because it also says in the Talmud, right, in the oral law, God said on Mount Sinai, he gave us oaths, that he administered oaths that we had to take at Mount Sinai. And one of the oaths is that we don't retake the land of Israel, right, before the Messiah comes. Okay? That's one of the things that we take. We have to wait for the Messiah to come before we can go take it, and we should never take it by force. And of course, the state of Israel violated 2 of those oaths because it obviously retook the land long before the Messiah came, and 2, it took it by force. Now you're going to say, well, wait a minute, the Balfour Declaration and the UN and all the stuff, they approved it, true, but the people who were living there, who were like the Arabs, they never agreed to it, and the minute the Jews showed up, they started a war with them. So that's your proof that they took it by force, because the people there never agreed to it, because it was done without their ratification according to Torah. That's not good enough. You can't have that the rest of the world, because they're irrelevant. The people on the ground are the people that matter, right? So the state of Israel, right, which is, of course, it was never designed to be a Torah or a religious, they don't follow Judaism, right? It was created by Bolsheviks. These are people who follow Marxism. These were socialists and communists. They came down. They didn't care what the Torah says on it. They don't care about Judaism. They just took it. Well, they violated Jewish law on that. They should not have taken it. And every rabbi prior to 1948 said, don't do this. Every major rabbi said, don't do this. Don't go down there, you're violating Jewish law. Because for 2,500 years that we've been thrown out by the Babylonians, we've had many, many chances that we could go back. But we said, no, we're not going back en masse. We're not going back as a big group. We're not going to take this by force. We're going to wait until the Messiah comes. But the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel, said, well, we don't have anything to do with that. And they went and put it right there. Okay? So a Jew can't say, well, God promised to the Jews that land belongs to them. That's their homeland. That God gave that to them. Not really. Right now, it's nobody's homeland.